Hi, everybody. Welcome to this evening. We've got three very interesting presenters for you, and you've probably gathered from the slide that you can see that our topic for this evening is Reiki in time of crisis and tools and techniques to support yourself and those around you, which is always valuable. Uh, really interested to see what the three speakers have to talk about. But for the moment, why don't we think about, because the world is experiencing a number of issues that could be viewed as crises. I'd like to actually focus on what it is we might be feeling gratitude for, what our blessings might be. So, for the purpose of the short meditation that I'll be doing as an introduction, I would love it if you would either place your hands upon yourself so that you are experiencing Reiki at the time that you're doing the meditation or whatever's comfortable for you. And I'll ask you to close your eyes and I will simply lead us into some light breathing. And then just for today, I feel gratitude for. And then I'm not going to say anything. And a word might pop into your head. And after a pause, I might again say, just for today, I feel gratitude for. And another word might pop into your head. And it would be interesting to see if we end up as individuals meditating on the first or just the second one that comes into our minds, or indeed if there are many things that we find you can fill in that blank space with in terms of a word pertaining to gratitude. So, with our eyes closed and just breathing easily and deeply, feeling the energy from our hands in whichever way that manifests for you. For me, right now, it's a calming warmth. Feel it flowing through my own body. And very gently, I bring my focus to the words. Just for today, I feel gratitude for. And whatever pops into your mind as the end of that sentence, just pause and reflect for a moment. Just for today, I feel gratitude for. 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 And lastly, just for today, I feel gratitude for. Pause on that thought. Reflect on that thought. And just for today, I feel gratitude that all of us can be here sharing when there are difficult times in the world and we are fortunate enough to live in a place where we can experience peace through Reiki and through the community that we belong to in Reiki. When it feels right to you, refocus in your seat. Feel your breath easily inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. And when it feels right to you, open your eyes and enjoy the presentation that is about to unfold. Okay. Well, hopefully, um, people were able to experience gratitude for something. And maybe if we have time, we can share a little bit about what that might be at the end of the evening. But for now, Slivica, perhaps you'd like to pop over to the slide for, here we go, Maria. So I'd like to welcome Maria. I've met her on a couple of Google Meet situations now, and I like how she's expressed her background in the first paragraph there. Maria Lacey is a compassionate healer, registered counselor, hypnotherapist, award winning author, international speaker, spiritual mentor, Reiki master, meditation teacher, and intuitive guide. That's a lot. So I would be interested to hear from Maria based on what she's put there in her bio and where she's coming from now, how she's utilized Reiki to deal with some of those difficult situations that she alluded to in her bio regarding childhood trauma and how it can be carried forward into adulthood. And I'd be interested to see how she can provide us with some insight and wisdom regarding dealing with the sense of times of crisis utilizing Reiki. Thanks, Maria. Whenever you're ready, you unmute yourself and begin.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sue, and thank you everybody else as well. And it's so lovely to see everybody. Now, I'm a bit of a storyteller, so I thought the easiest thing for me to do today is actually share a story. And I want to share a story about actually a client of mine, and I do have permission to share this. And a young woman, excited to have her first baby, and had the baby, but unfortunately was born with seizures. And what ended up happening, mum was taken to one hospital in Melbourne and the baby taken to another. And mum, of course, discharged herself and went to the baby. Now, I was called to come in and to give Reiki to this baby in the ICU unit, would you believe, at Royal Children's Hospital. And it was such an incredible honor and privilege. This child was having up to 200 seizures a day. You can imagine a newborn child. And you imagine our hands over a little newborn baby. You can see my hands here. Over a little newborn baby, they're quite large. It sort of covers the whole little baby. But I remember walking in there and mum was pretty stressed out and so was dad. And interestingly enough, just so you know, dad didn't even know me. And so for him to trust me to be able to sort of do what he didn't even understand what Reiki was, do some healing on his child. But I want to tell you something that was really interesting. When I went into the ICU unit, it was one nurse to each little baby. And the nurse was South African. And she said to me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing Reiki." And she said, "Give me a minute." And she ran away, came back, came back with a CD player, back in those days, a CD player, I came back with a CD player and put on some really lovely music. And she said to me, I am so, so grateful. And I said, what do you mean? She said, in South Africa, as nurses, we're often trained in Reiki and we give Reiki to our patients. But of course, here, we're not allowed to in Australia. So she was incredibly, incredibly grateful. Now, with this little child, because of her seizures, children are very, she was very stressed. But the wonderful thing about it was that she also knew at the age of 1 week old, exactly where I was allowed to put my hands and where I wasn't allowed to put my hands. And I remember with her, she was so cute. If I put my hands near her head, because of the electrical currents going and because of obviously the seizures, she'd scream at me. When I placed my hands just above her body, she'd stop her seizuring. And it was just the most beautiful thing to watch. And during that time, I spent 2 weeks. I cleared my whole calendar and I actually gave my time freely to this mum and their baby. And I started giving healings to mum as well. Do you know that whole time that mother never lost her milk? Now, I'm sure you will all understand how stressful it is when you have your first child and they're not well. Anyway, she did not at all lose her milk, which is such a beautiful thing to see. But this particular day, the child was actually taken to a private room, and Dad was watching, and Mum had gone for a bit of a break, and I was giving some healing, and I just saw him just watching, not sure what was going on. So I said to him, "Do you know what I'm doing?" And he said, "No." So I asked him to come over and I asked him to put his hands just above his little one. And I placed my hands on top of his. And I started sending energy through. This grown man burst into tears because he could feel the energy. It was one of the most precious moments. He gave me the greatest hug afterwards. Do you know that wherever I went over the next however many years, even to this day, would you believe? And this was this little girl who was one of 40 in the world having this particular condition. A lot of these children passed away at the age of 2.5. She lived till she was 14. Now, uh, it's not because of me. It was because her mother and her father were pretty darn amazing. I taught the grandmother Reiki so that she could feel empowered with her first grandchild. And so she was able to then carry on giving the Reiki. But every birthday and Christmas, I got invited to all of the family functions. And every time I came in, this little girl just gave me the biggest smile. No, it was the most beautiful thing. She didn't, I don't believe she actually remembered me. I think she remembered the energy. Does that make sense to people? Yeah. So it was such a beautiful thing. So my story is to sort of let you know that was to me a crisis moment. It was a time of, a difficult moment for people, but it was a time where as a practitioner, I was able to offer something. Now, this little girl, like I said, passed away when she was 14. And I am so grateful to have actually been involved in all of this. You know, in our lives, there are so many things that happen to us in our lives. And I can't tell you how many times that I have traveled overseas where I've actually been in a situation, I was in Peru at one stage and I was sitting at a table with 12 strangers and I felt something not right. And I looked to the side of me and here this woman's eyes were bulging and she was actually choking on her food. I literally said she was choking. Someone tried to do Heimlich on her, dragged her into another place. I went in there and said to her, she was going blue in the face. I said, "Do you mind if I do Reiki?" And as all of us know, as far as Reiki practitioners are concerned, we always still need to ask. And even though she couldn't respond to me, all I got was this. And all I did was just rub her back, giving the energy. And then all of a sudden, I felt something move and she vomited. And do you know, the woman didn't know what I did. But at the end of it, she said to me, I can't believe that happened. Did you feel that shift? And I said, yes, I did. But all it did was help her to relax. Do you know what I mean? So we can do so many amazing things with strangers, let alone for ourselves. I'm a storyteller, so I really like to sort of share stories because I think it paints pictures for people. Now, as I've said in my bio and Sue kindly shared, I come from a very violent background as a child and an abusive background, and unfortunately ended up in a marriage and so forth. It's actually one of the greatest reasons why I do what I do today, and that's why I am compassionate and healing came to me. And very, very quickly, I was in a corporate job. I had two children that were very young. I was a single parent. And I literally gave up my corporate work to run a Reiki business. Everything else evolved from that. And that was 25 years ago. And do you know what? I have never looked back. It is my mainstay, it is what keeps me going. And I just thought, before I finish off, is that I'd like to actually say to people, one of these things I remember with John, actually, the president of ARC, we went to the palliative care unit in Wantirna and we did a presentation for the nurses there. And one of the things is I'm presuming that most people here are either Reiki practitioners or have learnt Reiki or are interested in Reiki. And what I'd like you to do is just for a moment is just to just imagine a beautiful golden energy, which I think is the energy of Reiki. It's the energy of love. Ultimately, Reiki is love. And imagine that golden energy coming down. Place one hand on your chest and one hand on your sacral chakra, which is your lower belly. And just imagine that beautiful energy coming in and then just breathing it in through your hands. This is a wonderful position. The sacral chakra is all about our seat of power. It helps us to feel empowered. And with so much change happening in our world today, it helps us to stay anchored and grounded in our own power. The thymus area, up this area here, is actually often where we lose our power from. So this actually helps to relieve and to comfort the anxieties that may happen within our own bodies. So just breathe that in and just feel and sense the love. That beautiful love that's coming in through the universe, flowing in through your hands and into your body. This is why Reiki is so powerful. We're not using our own energy. We actually have access to the universal life force, that beautiful energy of love that will support us no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, and no matter who we are and who we're with. So that is what Reiki is to me. Reiki is love, and it is a gift, and it will actually help bring us back to balance and support us to become more present. So in times of crisis, we naturally go into fight and flight, and our cortisol levels spike, creating anxiety and sometimes panic. But if you're attuned to Reiki, you have a gift that you can use on a daily basis. And I really would love to, sort of recommend to you and only obviously if you're willing, but please utilize it. Feel the peace of it. And when you're in tune with your body, when you're in tune with the energy of love, you're in tune with your inner voice. Thank you.
That was really lovely. Thank you. Quite enjoyed that. I actually use hand on heart and hand on tanden, which is the Japanese word for that
Yes,
lower area, because obviously in Japan they don't use the chakra system.
that's
Um,
right.
I use that same position when I'm working with my students in terms of doing meditations with them, and it really does help calm, which is
Yeah,
wonderful. So it was nice to see that somebody else utilizes it for similar purposes. Thanks,
absolutely, Sue.
thanks, Maria. That was really good. So it might be time to move to our second speaker, please, Slavica. If you can do your magic with the slideshow. Okay. So, Katia, I only met recently in a Google meeting, but I already worked out there's um, a nice sense of humor there with Katia. And I don't know whether humor is one of the things she uses to deal with any crisis or stress thing that appears for her, but I'm sure she'll enlighten us. So, you'll notice here that she has a lot of varied interests if you have a look at her top paragraph there. So we have another counselor involved, and she's involved obviously in Reiki energy healing, a facilitator of women's circles, of which I've heard a little bit about, and nature connection programs, of which I've not heard very much about, but perhaps there'll be enough time for her to enlighten us on those two issues as well. I find it interesting that you've got a scientific background, cardio, because I did as well in terms of biology, and everybody who knew me and that background for me thought it was absolutely ludicrous that I got involved in something like Reiki. And yet I find it's not incompatible with science at all. So it would be good to hear how that was for you. But what I'd really, really like to do is turn over to you now so that you can discuss with us what your tips and ideas are on how to support yourself or how to perhaps support others in terms of going through periods of crisis. Thanks, Katia.
Thanks, Sue, for that wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it. I love all the things that you pulled out of my bio. Yeah. Also, I'd just like to say thank you to Maria because I really love the stories that you share. And I want to take a leaf out of your book and learn how to do storytelling. I just, yeah. So I'm not telling stories here. Mine's probably a bit more of a lecture. um, but what I'd really love to do is talk a little bit about our nervous system and how we can support our nervous system in times of crisis and bring that information to and link it to the clients that I like to work with. I mean, I work with anyone really that wants to work with me, but clients that I like to work with, like my area of interest is women in midlife. So yeah, so a little bit about how I uh, like to connect that time of could be called a midlife crisis, but anyway, midlife, and to support women through that as well. So, I mean, I know where, so you started us off with looking at gratitude, but a lot of people do go through crisis. And for me personally, I like to see what's happening, so if somebody's in a crisis, what is that actually for them in this moment? Like, and what's that showing up for them in their lives? Um, and the body is in a stress response when we're in crisis, and it might have come on suddenly, it might have come on over time, like it just depends on the person's situation. Um, and that and understanding how that stress response works on our bodies and our nervous system and our brain, I've found that really useful in terms of like making changes and adjustments and choices and how to move forward and how to support myself and bring myself back to baseline so that I can continue on doing the things I need to do or want to do. So, if we're speaking about what a stress response is in the body, it's actually a very strong physiological response that happens. Like it happens in the brain, it impacts our whole body, our health. In that moment of stress, depending on how strong it is, if it's a crisis, um, we're in that state of we get turned over into this state of fight or flight because we're feeling danger. We're feeling like we're not safe, so our bodies go into this unconscious response that's actually it's actually programmed into our brains. We're born with it because in the olden days we used to get chased by bears and we had to save ourselves, so we had to know how to do that. Some people still do, I don't know. uh, but yeah, but there are a lot of things in life that would trigger that. And it's basically just one part of the brain, and when that part of the brain is activated, it will set off a whole series of reactions in the body. So all the stress hormones will start to flood through our body. Our heart rate will increase, our breathing rate will increase, our digestion will stop working. Basically, all the blood gets redirected to parts of the body that are about fighting or running away, or something to do like freeze to keep us safe, and hide. So whatever it is in that moment, and we're not consciously aware of it, but our body knows what it needs to do to become safe. Yeah. So in nature, animals, when they go through this process, like they automatically know how to bring themselves back. There's actually an automatic system in the body to help us, but us humans, we've somehow taught ourselves not to do that. We carry on, we keep going, like especially city folk, we're just always in a rush. We don't give ourselves time to really tune in and notice what's happening, to give ourselves recovery time, to go back into that rest and digest mode, to let the brain reset and come back online into the part of the brain that is like, more conscious and more thinking and more aware and more tuned in. So unfortunately, a lot of people live in a chronic stress state. A lot of people don't really recognize what it is like to be living calmly. And that has a lot to do with our city lives. So Reiki, I find, is really helpful to reset our nervous system. There's a lot of hand positions with Reiki that work around the head. And, there's one in particular that is the back of the head and one at the front of the head. And if you think about it, like a bit of anatomy here, I'm not going to go into it too much. But anyway, look at the part of the brain that activates stress responses in the back, and the part of the brain that is kind of more our being present, conscious thinking brain, that's in the front. So we've got like these two hand positions here that support that shift. We've also got other hand positions that support the body to start to allow it to receive Reiki. And I um I always think that when the body calms down, when we're in fight or flight, we're just trying to save ourselves. We're in separation. When the body calms down, we're coming back to connection. The body calms down, it allows that loving light to come back in. It allows us to feel connected to community. Like it allows us to heal and process our emotions. It allows, us to come back online and think about our lives and what's been happening, what just happened, what do I need to do to solve the problem. I don't have to feel stressed to be able to solve the problem. I can take a step back and start to think about it, and then how do I address it? So I'm coming from that place in myself that is more thinking and aware, rather than the part of me that is freaking out. um I said I was going to talk about women in midlife, so I'm quickly going to say something about that because I'm running out of time. um so the key thing here for me is to say around women in midlife is, we hear about people going through midlife crisis. It is a thing. It does happen. There's a whole lot of stuff written about it. It can be quite transformational, and if it's navigated consciously, it can be an incredible time. Yeah. For women, the heat gets really turned up because we go through major hormonal changes, and a lot of things are triggered and activated. Things are happening in our lives. you know, that there's a lot of themes around women in midlife that have to do with, you know, playing specific roles or particular roles that are quite common, being mothers or being, you know, partners, you know, trying to do everything, having jobs, becoming carers of older parents, like that time in midlife, you know, it's quite an intense, can be, not for everyone, can be quite an intense time. And then when the hormones start to, you know, stir the pot, a lot of things start happening. You know, it's quite an incredible time and can be like incredibly powerful and transformative. So my take on this is being able to navigate it consciously to move into our elder years. You know, what do we need to grieve and let go of, but to become really conscious and aware of? Where have we, you know, where do we need to come back to ourselves in our center and be really aware of who we are, what we forgot to focus on because we were so busy? How do we come back, listen to our soul? What choices do we make from here and move on? So in the context of it being a crisis, for me, it's around, okay, so every day, what's happening? Am I stressed? How do I bring myself back? What are the things I need to do to calm my nervous system, to let the rest of my body do what it needs to do, feel safe? My brain works from a place of feeling safe so that I can carry on and make, you know, sometimes really significant choices at this time of my life. Mm. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. Be happy to answer any questions anyone has. But yeah, I just, thanks for the opportunity to talk about that. I could talk forever, but I'm going to stop now.
Well,
Thanks, Sue.
I appreciate that enormously because with the background in biology, I totally get what you're talking about with the central nervous system and all of those other kinds of things. And I completely agree with you that one of the great things about getting your hands on and doing Reiki is that it can bring you back into yourself within the present moment. And when that happens, even though something might be a bit scary out there, you can apply, you tend to have a little bit more clarity because you're not so much in that panic mode. And
Mm,
there's a lot of physiological stuff that we can do to support ourselves, but that's another one. Maybe we should come back one day and look at the anatomy and physiology and how Reiki can have direct impact on things like panic attacks and so on, because there's also micronutrient issues involved there and deficiencies, particularly in water soluble vitamins and things like that, that can make a huge difference to your adrenal health, which can then make a huge difference to how calmly you face things or how panic stricken you
mm,
face things. So maybe that would be a great topic for another day. But yes,
totally.
thank you, Katia. I really got where you were coming from there, and I hope other people did as well. Yes,
Thanks, Sue.
excellent. Thank you. So we have one last speaker. Hi, Samantha. Samantha and I have been on a couple of these things together, and it's nice to welcome you back. And let's find out a little bit more about you. So, you've been working as a Reiki Master Teacher since 2006, which is a pretty lengthy period of time to be sitting in the role. And I like how you have the idea of Reiki as physical, emotional, spiritual. So, in other words, holistic approach, because some people come into Reiki where it's a physical thing that they're concerned about, but what they discover they might benefit from first is a shift in a mental or an emotional state, for example. So I like that you have this comprehensive approach to what you do with Reiki. And therefore, let's see what it is you would like to offer us in terms of some ideas for how we can utilize this wonderful gift of Reiki in terms of times of crisis. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you, Katia, and thank you, Maria. Beautiful storytelling. I love hearing about those amazing success stories, you know, where we connect and we make a difference in people's lives. And Katia, a fantastic explanation about crisis and the nervous system. And you've really set us up for a really good picture now. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Um, There is so much crisis going on in the world, but there's a lot of challenges going on in the world, whether that's in our own little worlds or in our external worlds or the world in general. And I really wanted to share some techniques because what I found over the last, particularly last 4 to 6 months, and it is ongoing, I'm finding a lot of my beautiful clients are coming in for sessions saying, my world is okay, but I'm so anxious and I can't sleep and my jaw is locked and I've got this tremor and I don't understand what's happening. And as Kati would have explained, we've gone into fight flight. So although we've gone back to work, things have changed, our life looks okay, but underneath the nervous system is really still in that fight, flight, freeze scenario. So we have the locked jaw is where we go into fight. We're gonna attack. You know, we can't sleep because it's not safe to sleep because we're under that attack feeling. So what I've been doing with a lot of my clients is about 3 different processes which I have found deeply, deeply settling for the nervous system. And I really wanted to share these with you if they are of use to you, of use to those that you care about, or use for your clients as well. I really have found that these have taken people on that deeper level. So let's go through some of the processes. And let's remember also, just before we go onto that slide, sorry, Savika, is that Reiki is ultimately unconditional love. And as Reiki practitioners, Reiki healers, we emanate this energy of love and compassion and empathy. And that influences other people's state of being. It's a very safe place to be and a very accepting place to be. And I think that's very important that we really respect that energy that we have to be able to share with others because it does create a lot of safety and a lot of love. So I really want to focus on that because that really calms the nervous system as well. And in fact, in hospitals all over the world, they're using this for relieving anxiety, stress, depression, as well as physical issues. But let's go on to these 3 processes I want to share with you today. So if we can go to the next slide, please. The first process, I want to bring you to the Reiki precepts. And the Reiki precepts brings calmness in the present moment. It brings us to the present moment. When we're in that fight, flight, freeze, we're thinking about what happened or what might happen. Just for today, do not worry. Just for today, do not anger. And these Reiki precepts, just for today, say, take a moment to breathe, to come to the present moment, and we can look around us. How is everything? Right now, in this precise moment, everything is okay. And it helps our brain to check in that we are not under threat in this moment, if that's true at that time. It can really help settle the brain. And I invite my clients to say this throughout the day to help the cognizant brain to realize that they are not in danger in this moment. Okay, so that really does help. The second process I invite is a deep breathing exercise. Now, when we give Reiki, it is a very mindful practice and we are using our breath, and our breath can really influence the breathing of our clients or the person that we're assisting. We know when we have short, shallow breaths from the chest, we're really ready to run. Yeah. When we slow down our breath and start breathing from the belly, it switches on what we call the parasympathetic nerve system, which brings on the deep relaxation response. Our tummy gurgles because it's ready to digest our food. So I find that this breathing technique called the 4-7-8 breath, and you might have heard that before, really helps to bring the breathing back down into the belly. And we breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And this is very important. Now, this particular technique is breathing in through the nose for the count of 4 holding for the count of 7 and exhaling for the count of 8. I'd really like to try this with you. So if you'd like to get comfortable and just close your eyes and maybe place a hand on your belly. Now I'm going to use the counting method. If you find that this counting is too stretched for you, if it's too long, just respond to what's more comfortable for you. So if it's up to 3 is enough, then just go with that. So just honor yourself. But I will be counting to 4, 7, and 8. All right. So when you're ready, closing your eyes. Okay, now we're going to breathe in through the nose, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now you try it yourself. In, hold, out. Beautiful. And just let it go. Let your breathing go back to its natural rhythm. And just notice where you're breathing from. Notice if it's lower, is it wider, is it warmer, might be fuller. Just notice. And so this is a very useful technique, and it really does help settle that breathing. And you want to repeat that 3 to 4 times, and that really is enough. Okay. And then the last process I'd like to share with you is a Reiki technique that we introduce in our Reiki level 2s, but we really go deeper in our master training. It's a very, very simple technique. And I find that this is very useful when I'm coming towards the end of my practice. So probably the last 10 minutes, give 10, might be even 15 to 20 minutes. If my client is really going through a lot of stress, I'll spend, 15 to 20 minutes doing this. So, and it's really coming deep intention of being deeply, deeply, deeply relaxed, going into that theta state where healing happens. And what we do is place our the shoulder nearest to you, the client or the recipient's shoulder, cup their shoulder, and then place your hand on their thigh. And just allow the Reiki just to be shared into that deep, deep state, remembering that your energy and the Reiki is influencing and supporting the energy of the person receiving. We find this is deeply, deeply reassuring. And you want to be in this position for about 2 to 3 minutes, maybe more. And all you want to be thinking through your head is deep relaxation, calm, and some people like to say heal. And after, then very gently moving the hand over the elbow and then the knee. So the elbows, we tend to get a lot of emotional stuckness in the elbow. We tend to hold a lot of resentment in the knees and a lot of feeling held back and limited. So deep, deep healing into the elbow and the knee at the same time. And again, 2 to 4 minutes of just being really in that present state of deep relaxation. And then the wrist and the ankle. And we find that these areas, the wrist and the ankle, is where we bring more flexibility into our thinking and our feeling. When we tend to be in that high stress response, we feel limited in viewing things in different ways or having different emotions. We don't have access to that. So this really deepens that flexibility into the mental and emotional state. Again, 2 to 4 minutes, deep, deep state. And then placing the hand over their palm and the hand over their foot. So not the toes, you want it on the foot. And again, bringing in that Reiki, really connecting into that deep state of healing. And this feels very, very safe, very secure, very grounding as well. Got our feet back on the ground and we feel safe. So again, 2 to 4 minutes on that side. And then very, very slowly moving to the other side of the person's body and doing the same. So cupping the shoulder and the thigh for a period of time, the elbow and the knee, the wrist and the ankle, and the hand and the feet. And really take your time doing this. Really stay present, very, very deep. And then you might want to finish your treatment in your usual way, whatever you feel is appropriate for you. And then slowly bring your client back or the person receiving back. They'll feel very heavy. And it's quite interesting, I find, when people find they feel heavy, if they're not used to having healings, they'll feel, oh, I feel really low. Does it feel low or do you feel heavy? Heavy is actually quite a good thing because we've got you back in the body, from away from the head and back into the body. We really want to get them back in the body. So I've used this process, those 3 processes, for a number of clients going through a really high stress response, and it has made a huge difference. And after about 3 to 4 treatments, this particular client who had the locked jaw, couldn't sleep, it was all, her sleeping pattern was back to normal. And so it's been a real game changer for a lot of people. So if you know somebody that's going through that kind of level of stress where they feel like their life is okay, but their body is saying otherwise, I really recommend giving that a go. So I hope that's been useful for you. I really wanted to say that, Reiki gives us a safe space. It offers a safe space to process our emotions and find peace, that peace in the heart that Maria mentioned earlier. And it's a reminder that even amidst a crisis, you really are not alone. We feel that connection and feel held. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope that's been of some help.
Thanks, Samantha. Thanks very much. That was another very interesting viewpoint and some quite practical techniques that you were able to share as well, which is really nice. I have to say, I've noticed in my own practice when people are saying that they're feeling stuck, or a partner has said, my other half is being really inflexible about X, Y, and Z. I sometimes find if you Reiki the wrists, because they represent flexibility, that person can just suddenly have like a little aha moment, a little light bulb moment where they suddenly recognize that maybe by remaining a bit rigid or inflexible, and I would never use those terms with them. I never talk about impressions when I'm working with clients. I only ever talk about the energy sensations and perhaps the intensity or whatever. But it's very interesting to have when you see those little aha moments and somebody makes a shift and you actually haven't had to say anything. You've been able to put your hands on it. It's made a difference. And that's a really wonderful, amazing blessing with Reiki, isn't it? That as practitioners and teachers, or focusing just on practice or focusing just on teaching, we can still, well, perhaps the way we present makes a difference, but the Reiki being able to really permeate and provide someone with that sense, as you say, of not being alone, which is an amazing thing. I'm really grateful to all 3 presenters. It's been quite a diverse range of things that we've had the benefit of hearing tonight from all 3 of you. Uh, I'm so grateful to all of you for that. That was really lovely. And before we close, we have an opportunity for questions from the people who've been listening in and hopefully enjoying it as much as I have.
You, all three of you, for sharing and Sue for hosting. I learned a lot, and I love the breathing exercises, and everything that I've heard is really helping me as a Reiki practitioner. Just hear from somebody else saying these things, and then reminding me, yes, we have so many tools in our hands when we practice Reiki to help ourselves and help others. And I look forward to anyone putting their hand up and asking a question.
Thank you, all the presenters. That was really very informative and reminded me of all sorts of things, but also I picked up a few nifty things. And also I just wondered, now let me see, I think it was Katya. Would you have anything like with stress and hindbrain and forebrain, would you have anything to say about the vagus nerve?
Hi, Annie. Thanks. um, well, my understanding, and I could be wrong, and anyone else might have more information about this than I do. The vagus nerve works best when we are in rest and digest mode. So when our nervous system is calm, when the parasympathetic nervous system is activated, that's when our vagus nerve is working at its best. Yeah. So and it helps to keep everything online and everything functioning well. So yeah, is there anything in particular that you wanted to know, or was that in the ballpark of what you're asking?
I've read a certain amount about the vagus nerve and heard a certain amount, and I understand that it's seriously important. And but also it occurs to me that hand position, like the vagus nerve kind of runs down here and it's quite long, but a Reiki position like this would actually be directly over the vagus nerve. And I don't
Yeah,
know,
right. Okay.
just a thought.
Yeah, that will be interesting to explore. I think that once
Yeah,
we
yeah.
start working with the brain and why the head position, like working with the head, is so important,
Mhm.
like, because it actually just channels right through the whole nervous system, through the whole body. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Cool. Thank
That's
you.
okay.
If you do a full body treatment, you're actually supporting the vagus nerve because you end up doing the head and the torso, and you should be doing the back. And that
Mm.
supports your entire nervous system, including your parasympathetic. So that's why full treatments are really of best benefit when we've got time.
Yeah,
Sometimes we
so we're
don't always
working on the
have time.
spine as well. Yeah. Mm.
Exactly. So sometimes we
Mm.
don't always have time, but if we've got the time, then it really is best to do full body. So torso, front and back, and the head as well.
Emma, why don't you unmute yourself and ask a question? You raise your hand.
I was just going to say that I've been through times where my nervous system's very bad, and I found that lying on my stomach that I learned from yoga, lying flat on my stomach was the best thing because it just it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. I learned in yoga, but it gives you this pressure here. And I found that was the only way when my nervous system was quite bad that I would actually lie there for some time and then I would find it would release, but it would take about 20 minutes on my stomach. And I was wondering if someone's in like that kind of, crisis mode, can you treat them on lying on their stomach? Or would that be like also doubly beneficial or?
I
Yeah.
always treat
absolutely.
front,
Yeah.
head, and back.
Yeah.
So
But
that
yeah.
means when I'm doing their backs, they're on their stomachs.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with what your yoga training has done for you because it actually forces you to breathe deeply. It makes the
Yeah.
diaphragm move
Yeah. Yeah.
in a different
do-
way.
Yeah.
And it's great. I teach it to performers
Ah,
before they sing when they're getting really nervous.
yeah. Yeah.
When they come for singing lessons and the one thing they're really wanting is confidence because they're terrified, is I get them lying on their stomach and experiencing the actual feeling of what it is to breathe deeply and
Yeah.
to let the air out and so on and so forth. And it's got exactly the benefits that your yoga teacher was saying. So,
Yeah.
absolutely, there is no reason why you can't get people lying on their stomachs and you work down their backs. The only time you wouldn't do that
Yeah.
um, is pregnancy
Yeah.
past the midway point.
Yeah.
And if people have got certain circulatory issues and things like that where they're not advised to lie on their stomach,
Yeah.
if they've got silent reflux, they're actually usually okay on their tummies. You just wouldn't leave them there for very long.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Can I just mention something as well? Self-soothing is one of the greatest things, a somatic response. And with Reiki, it'll help with the parasympathetic nervous system. And so even just literally grabbing someone's hand and just gently doing this with their hand, you'll actually help the vagus nerve plus also the parasympathetic nervous system. So any of that sort of thing is really powerful as well. And that's touch, coming back to touch. Yeah.
Very nice. We have another hand raised. Mel, why don't you unmute yourself and ask if you have any particular panelists that you want to have this answered? You can ask directly, or they can jump in.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Thank you, all three. Sam, it's so good to see you again. I moved to Perth and I don't get to see you at the Womanly event, so I've missed you. Hi. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Katia. I just thought all of you were incredible and you had such different opinions and things to offer. So, yeah, thank you. My question to all three of you: what is the one thing that has helped you as a practitioner when you're going through your own Reiki or your own crisis, but you still have to work on people? Because for me right now, I have a 3.5-year-old. I turned 40 last year. I'm having like exact Katia, it could not have come at a better time in my life because I'm at the very beginning of what you're talking about. And I'm finding it really hard to stay centered, grounded, calm when I have people coming to me. I don't have many. I only take on, well, I take on what the universe gives me at the moment. I'm not advertising because I know that my priority is my family, but I'm still working. So my concern is I'm not looking after myself enough to be of service to people in the capacity that I want to be. So what is one point from each of you that you did that helped you the most when you were feeling like I am?
Okay, so I'm happy to go first, Mel, if that's okay. All right, because I was a single mum with 2 kids, so I know exactly that sort of thing. And it was my only income when I chose to leave the corporate arena. But self-care is one of the most important things. And to be honest, even from the time that I even really needed to work, I literally would not see clients if I was not in a good state myself.
Yeah.
And do you know that's actually done me well, because if your clients are receiving and they're receiving well because you're in a good state, then they will continue to come back and the universe will continue to bring people. If you're not in a good state and you do a half sort of job, your clients are going to feel and sense that, and you'll find that will get around too. So important for your own self-care is to look after yourself first. And that's how I've always worked with it in my business. And my business has supported me for 25 years. So
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Mel. Good to see you.
You too.
I was a single mum as well. My son was about 5, and my only income was Reiki. And it was right at the beginning of my proper business, I think. What I found was self-care is number one. So I would go for a walk lucky to be by the beach, I would go for a walk. I would check in with myself. What do I need? I would go to Reiki shares, do self-healing, or get myself a healing as well. So making sure that I was decluttering from the any sort of draining energy or where I was not in a great space, and postpone clients if I was not in a great space. Very important that. Refuel, and so give the overflow. When you fill your cup, give the overflow to others. And if kind of, which is always a bit tricky, isn't it, as a mum?
Yeah.
Very similar to Maria, you know, looking after self so that you can share the extra with others. But yeah, get a routine happening for you.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks for asking that question, Mel. It's amazing to, yeah, I think a lot of people can probably benefit from what you're asking. I've never had children, so I cannot speak from a single mum perspective. But so the one thing that came to mind when you were speaking was there's something that I think a lot of people might have heard this, but there's a saying that's like, I meditate half an hour every day, but I'm gonna have such a really busy day today and so many commitments, so I'm gonna meditate an hour instead of my usual half hour. Okay. So it's so important. Like, and I have to say that I have not been good at it in my life, and it's something that I've learnt to bring into my life. So my meditation is with Reiki. Um, and I actually cannot function with clients if I'm not looking after myself. Like it's not healthy. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say it. It's just not
Yeah.
healthy looking after yourself to be working with clients. Sorry, that's a bit blunt. I can be really
No,
blunt.
no, I completely, and I guess this is where I love doing Reiki, but I'm getting to the point at the moment where, I mean, like I said, I don't advertise. I only, some of my clients are actually family. So if I am having a rough day or rough sleep, I will say, let's postpone it. And yeah, I kind of feel like I have to choose right now because I got my hair done today though, so that was a good thing. And I was like, oh, I'm actually going to be on a call and I've got my hair done because I never usually do. But those things are really hard for me to now start saying, like, no, go and get those things done. Go and put yourself first, spend time alone, go for a walk. Because I think even if you're not a mother, there's always, as a woman, there is over a million things that you need to do and commitments you have. And like you said, looking after parents or, we're always worried about everybody else except for ourselves. So yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Sorry, I keep saying what you were going to say. I totally agree with you.
No, that's fine. Like you have all the insight. And that drive to keep going and keep looking after people and putting everyone ahead of ourselves, like that's something to, I think a lot of women, it really helps us to look at that carefully and think about that. It's easier to keep giving, but what about how do I have that same sense of ease to give to myself? Like, is it the same or is it different when I need to give to myself? And sure, when you've got kids, it must be almost impossible to carve out that time. But finding ways to do it, even like I think Sam was saying, to take a walk in nature. Walking in nature, if you can get out, if you have grass, take your shoes off and stand on the grass. That's incredibly powerful. Like the earth's energy is designed for us to have skin to skin contact. It's a really healthy thing to do. It helps our nervous system. And stand on the grass and give yourself some Reiki 10 minutes. If you can do it a few times throughout the day and see what happens, even if it's once a day, before you have your shower in the morning, or I don't know, like if you've got a routine that you can stick to.
There is one thing I want to add, because I think none of you mentioned that. And I think for me, that works the best. Go for a treatment to another Reiki practitioner.
Yeah.
Don't wait. Do it weekly if you need to until you recharge. I've done it.
Yeah.
I have people coming to me when they need it. And I love going to my Reiki friends, and thank you to those who gave me Reiki. And that's for me, the most powerful way to recharge quickly. So
Yes.
that's my piece of advice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, Lavitza. Yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah. Well,
Takata,
We're all in this together.
yeah. Thank
Takata
you.
always used to say that Reiki you number one.
Mm,
Because if you don't have the resources, your own resources, and that means topping up with Reiki as well as giving yourself a bit of space or a bit of time or whatever it might be, then it's difficult to feel that you have the resources then to give to others. And that was a hard lesson that I had to learn because I was always running around after everybody else. And you know what? I'm still doing that. However, I prioritize, I do Reiki for myself every morning before I get out of bed. So for 10 minutes in the morning, the first thing I do when I wake up is I Reiki myself. And I will be meditating on what's coming up for me in the day ahead. And with the hope and the intention that things go smoothly and that I will be able to be in the right place for the people that I'm supporting at the time, regardless of what sort of support it is that I'm giving. And I do the same thing at night before I go to sleep. And so I end up having a really restful sleep. And the other thing I would say is because we're channeling Reiki, we're bringing Reiki within ourselves, even when we're providing it to somebody else. So we both get benefit. So you don't have to feel perfect to give a treatment to somebody else. You just have to feel that you can be there in the space and allow the energy to flow and go with that flow. So no judgment on yourself. How, is my hair right? Is everything ready? Does it look fantastic? If you just feel that you can be there for the other person as well as for yourself because you're getting it too.
yeah. And
I
that's a good
found
point.
then it was actually easy to not stress about how perfect or not.
Yes. And I think also like you hit the nail on the head with me. I always feel like, oh, I have to be absolutely 1,000% there for the client. When actually most of the time I do have people coming back and wanting more sessions. So I'm thinking to myself sometimes I am still okay. Obviously, I don't want to be there if I'm burning out, but I think, yeah, it's taking that pressure off ourselves as practitioners as well, and understanding that if the client is still there, maybe the energy match is right for that particular day with that particular person. So,
I'm still here and I started professional practice in 1998
hmm.
and I'm turning 60 this year.
Wow, that's a milestone. Wow,
Yeah.
congratulations.
And like you, I had my children later in life. I had one just before I turned 40 and the other one just before I turned 42. So I know what it is to have a young family, to be trying to do Reiki and so on and so forth. I really empathize with you, but the Reiki will be there for you and with you, as well as for you and for your clients.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, everybody. I will let Anne talk now because I have kept the room for a while. But thank you so much. I've really enjoyed tonight and I was just so glad that I was able to make it. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mel. Now, Annie, you have your hand raised.
Um,
If you wanna just
I just wanted to say I'm with Sue. I was thinking, what do I do? And I was feeling a bit guilty and things. But then I went, no. The things that help me be okay for a client is I'm fortunate. I've got a dedicated practice room. It's beautiful. It's not always beautiful, but when a client is coming, it's beautiful. And that really supports me. It shifts my energy. The process of making the room right, lighting candles, and I do a lot of massage. I do massage as well as Reiki, but it doesn't matter which it is. And then, so in a way, I have a ritual an informal ritual of creating a setting, and that brings me into the space, into the Reiki space. And also when I'm doing Reiki, yes, absolutely, Sue, that energy's flowing through me. And I have a lot more even emotional equilibrium these days, because now I'm bloody 70. Anything that used to stress me, I've given up on. But back in the day when I had a lot of emotional turmoil, I might be feeling not so great when I came to do that Reiki. And you know what? Doing the Reiki treatment would completely shift my energy. And I'd come out of it going, they pay me to do this? And that's my truth. And I also I quit in 2007, but I used to, for 14 years, I ran a weekly Reiki share night. And I always put myself on the table, because one time I missed, and the next day I was so cranky that I had not got my Reiki. I was just really dirty. And I went, oh, listen to self. Do not miss out because you feel really deprived. So once a week, I would, like, it was we would all be immersed in a Reiki and I would wake up the next morning and look at myself in the mirror, and the whites of my eyes would be just vibrating. They would almost be blue, like to be just, and after a Reiki weekend, a Reiki workshop, I would just be uplifted into a whole other space. And so Reiki, like just being involved in the practice of Reiki, it helps me more than just doing Reiki on myself. I'm very interactive. I get more benefit from getting a Reiki from someone than giving it to myself, to my perception, although I'll also share that a friend turned me on to giving myself distant healings rather than doing hands-on. And like, that really rocks. That really takes me to a whole other space, takes me to Reiki cosmic space. So I pass that on too. But yeah, sorry, I got all enthusiastic. I just wanted to share all of that.
I loved it. Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Does anyone have any more questions? Like, we are running into almost an hour and a half and we should be wrapping it up. So if we can probably go for another question or two. And if there are no other hands raised, I may ask one. But I think I'm going to ask, I'm just going to put the question out there, and then whoever wants to answer can jump in. Samantha or Katja or Maria, or all three of you can go one after the other. So I noticed that somehow this presentation was geared towards practitioners, even though this was a public event for everyone, some people who haven't done Reiki or haven't been attuned or trained or don't know anything about Reiki. So just a question for those who would rewatch this and ask, okay, but I'm not a practitioner, so how does this help me? Like, what would be your advice for people who haven't done any Reiki, what they can take out of this session, and what would you recommend they do to help themselves? And I know what you're going to say, go and train yourself to be a Reiki practitioner, but I would like to hear from your experience of where would you advise someone to, what they should do to help themselves.
If I can answer that question for you, Savika, thank you. I think that's a great question. And for anybody who's watching this on the replays or watching this today, I think what Maria, Katja, and myself have sort of shared with you is the possibilities and the abilities that Reiki has. So it also helps you understand what happens to the body and the nervous system. And that if we are in that state of crisis or challenge, be that mental, emotional, or physical, we heard that from Maria's storytelling at the beginning there, the Reiki can really help the whole body, and mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And this is why they are using it as a complementary therapies in so many clinics now. And I think as somebody who's not received Reiki before, but are going through a stressful time, just knowing that the practitioners are skilled up and aware in the nervous system, maybe not to the level of a doctor or a psychologist, unless they're already trained as a psychologist or a counselor or biologist, but we have an understanding of the nervous system, and we have the feedback from so many research studies. I think Reiki is one of the most researched complementary therapy that show that it does really help benefit the nervous system. So I think give it a try. And I say it's a big menu out there, and give it a try. If it works for you, continue to use it. How about Maria and Katya?
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm waiting.
yeah. Okay. That's perfect, Sam. That's exactly what you just said is perfect. And to be honest, Reiki is so simple, and it's a simplicity that is with it that makes it the most beautiful and loving thing as a gift to yourself. So honestly, my clients, and I know many of your, Sam's and Cartier's clients and Anne's as well, and everybody else that's practitioners here, people often say to me, oh my goodness, I just can't believe I am so relaxed. And we don't have to say a word. We just need to channel the energy and just allow it to do what it needs to do. So all I say to people who are not practitioners and that are watching this, source a practitioner out. Go onto the Australian Reiki Connections website, check out practitioner near your area, and really source a practitioner out and experience it. You've got nothing to lose.
That's very true. Katya, your turn.
Thank you. Gosh, I have so much to say about this. Okay, so the one thing I'd like to say just here is, even with all the information that we've provided tonight, and I've gone into biology, which I don't normally do, but I just felt like I wanted to do that today. The important thing with Reiki is to give it a go. Yeah, so people often ask me a lot of questions if they've never had a Reiki before. So my response is, let's have a go. Let's see what happens. See what you're going through now. Let's have some Reiki. See what you feel like after. Yeah, check it out and explore it for yourself. I can't provide the answers for people. It's really important for people to explore it for themselves, see what happens for you, understand the benefits that it's providing you in your life. Explore that. It's a really beautiful way of exploring things for yourself. Yeah. And taking control for yourself through the insights that you gain through receiving Reiki. Yeah, to learn and just take the reins, start to understand, through the insights you get, through the changes in your body, through the way your mind works, how your emotions are going. Oh, yeah, yeah. Like there's other ways of doing this, other ways of thinking about this. So it's really a beautiful path to self-awareness. So that would be my thing, to give it a go. Don't worry too much about having answers to your questions. Give it a go and see what happens, and then you can learn it if you want to. It's easy to learn level 1 and take it into your life for your own use and have it as a daily practice if you want to. Yeah, it's just that's what I say on it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We are coming close now to an hour and a half. I'm just going to pop up a slide before we leave that will show what's coming up next in terms of ARC online events. And then I'll let Sue just conclude the session. So if you can see now on the screen, we're going to have 2 more sessions coming up in July, on 28th of July. And it will be about, again, how Reiki changes people's lives. We're going to have another 3 presenters sharing their experiences. On 29th of September, we're going to have a topic which is really on a lot of people's minds, and it is about Reiki and how it can support anyone during the time of transition when a person is passing away. And we have 3 incredible speakers for that event lined up. So please follow us on social media and visit our website. You can also watch all the previous presentations there and get in touch if you have any questions or suggestions. We are always here to serve and listen to what you have to say. And I'm going to stop sharing now. I think that's the last slide I have anyway. Let me just check. No, this is the last slide. I'm going to now ask Sue to conclude the session. And I'm going to mute myself.
It's been wonderful listening to all the different perspectives. There have been some great questions as well. So you'd say yours as well. It was really, really good, very special. I'm very appreciative, and I'm fairly sure that everybody else who's been a part of this evening is really appreciative too. So thank you, one and all, presenters, and also to everyone who came and became part of this online event. Your presence here is what makes it a special thing for us as well. So, Slobitsa, thank you for your technical expertise. Thank you again to the presenters, and thank you again to everybody else who tuned in. It's really lovely to have you here, and we will say goodbye until next time. Thank you.